And so today is Tuesday, September 15th, and it's Tuesday Conversation with Friends. So we had to change the platform because we're having some challenging time with the technology. So we're on Zoom, and Diana unfortunately cannot join us by video, but we can see her beautiful photo and hear her gorgeous voice. She is my guest today, Diana Briscoe, the holistic opera singer. Years ago, we met when we were both very young and doing a production of The Marriage of Figaro. Since then, we have grown both as human beings, really, before we are anything else, right? As well as artists. So I'm just so excited to reconnect with her. I'm gonna have her introduce herself and share with us her beautiful journey. Go ahead, Diana.
Thank you so much, Shirley. It's so great to be here and connect. And that's really what it's all about as a performer, is connecting with others and sharing who we are. When we sing these roles, we're bringing ourselves to them. So it's so important that we're on top of our emotional, mental, physical well-being, so that we are able to have that joy in expression, whether it's through singing or any other creative expression. So I started training in hypnotherapy since I left, and I started to practice about 7 years ago. Before that, when I met you, I was facilitating meditation, and I grew up in a very spiritual household. So spirituality was something I was always in touch with, but my own healing path for me was being able to express myself and heal myself. And when I started healing myself, I started singing, which is what I always wanted to do when I was a kid. So that was my main mode of expression, was to sing. And so I started singing, and my first production outside of school was in that production where I met you, where I actually had a role, the role of Susanna. So that was when I first started singing outside of school production. And since then I've done various roles, and I also sing jazz standards and Broadway, and I even ventured into the rock world. And for me, singing is a part of what's natural for me as an tool of expression. And so I started working with performers and singers with my practice. They were just actually the ones that were gravitating towards working with me were other performers, because I had worked with different people, but it seemed naturally I was able to help them unblock when they had creative blocks, help them achieve their goals through hypnosis primarily. And then I helped them with coaching, actually set the goals. But I got really excited when I saw that I was helping people with the same goals that I had been working on, and what I want to continue to work on, because for me, self-expression is one of the key ways of feeling fulfillment, joy, and happiness. So that's what I'm continuously striving for, and helping people actually take a stand for their artistic life. As artists, we're always taught that. What's that?
Yeah. So
as artists, we're a lot of people think of.
Right.
A lot of people think of it as something that's not important, or that it's something that isn't, something you should take seriously, as far as, a job or a career. And really, what's inside you is what you're bringing out there into the world, and you're touching people's hearts, you're touching people's spirits. So actually, the status of artists should really be a lot higher than it is, in my opinion.
I was curious, you mentioned something about people becoming blocked from their creativity, and I would love for you to chat a little bit about why and how and what blocks a person from being creative, because I think ultimately it's not just for artists. I think as human beings,
Yeah.
we're all creative, and because that's what makes us human, is that ability to continue to create, whether a person who's working as a computer software engineer, whether it's a person who is a street sweeper. I don't even know if people do that job anymore. And we are really, what makes us human is our ability to create. So I think when we disconnect from our creativity, when we become blocked, we also disconnect from our own humanity to a certain degree. So I would just love for you to talk about, in your experience working with people, what blocks a person from connecting with their creativity, and is there anything that would be simple and fundamental for us to do? Start with something small in our life that can help us to unblock as well.
Yeah, certainly. So in my experience with creative blocks, many people actually already seem to have the ideas that they end up receiving when they unblock. Like there was a little part of that was already in there, but they weren't listening to that voice or that message that they were getting that needed to be channeled. So often people aren't surprised when they get unblocked. They're like, oh, I kind of thought that already, but I wasn't sure. So then there was a lot of like self-doubt in the picture. So I think having a critical part of you that's critiquing, that's not nurturing, or receiving critique from others, that you start to not really listen to your ideas, and a lot of people develop barriers.
Okay.
And they could come from criticism, and often people are their most harshest critic. So usually I work with hypnosis. That's the main healing modality. So your subconscious has tons of information for you to access when you tap into your subconscious mind. But if you're not doing hypnosis, you're just going for a walk where you get into a zone and you're able to empty your mind, doing some kind of clearing of your energy, whether you go to the beach, whether you're clearing your mind through other art forms such as dance. Whenever you can get into that zone, the zone is a naturally hypnotic state. So like when you're driving and you pass that off ramp on the freeway because you're in a zone, that's a naturally occurring hypnotic state.
Wow.
So if you're able to have more, so it's a naturally occurring state of mind that we go through every day. So if we have more moments when we're in a zone, whether for some it's going on a run, you're able to access, information once you start getting all that conscious chatter out of the way. So taking more time for yourself, and just being open to possibilities. I would say fleshing stuff out, whether you're journaling. And you can write the most craziest stuff down, the most improbable ideas. And there's going to be these gems of creativity in those that you can utilize. But people have these barriers on what they think things are supposed to be, what other people might think about them. So once we're able to remove barriers, we have more access to creativity. But like for me, the way that I'm creative, I do things very intuitively. And so for me, I actually have to make the space to be intuitive. I have to block out the time to do the work, and then I'll just use my recorder on my phone, and I'll just start having a whole download of information, and then I sort it out later, and I see, oh, what worked in that. So I think that, does that answer your question about?
Yes, absolutely. And I really do think there is a value in stopping or slowing down in order to move forward. And I even think as we set goals, our goals begin to change and become more focused. Like the focus itself reveals itself when we take the time to stop. And, you know, I think as musicians, especially as performing musicians, we often practice and work on things because we have a project, because we have a performance coming up, we're creating something that's a project. And very rarely, as once we go beyond a certain point in life, that we just practice and work on something for pleasure, where we have that space where we're immersed in our creativity like a child because we don't have a purpose or reason for why we're doing it. Personally, I find those moments to be so important because we're in a zone that is pure, that we stop in order to discover and move forward. And I hear a lot of what you're saying is really that, you know, stop and take a walk, go to the beach, and really to disconnect with the chatters in our lives and to go into that zone, and we connect with something, and all of a sudden we feel, some people call this chi, some people call this energy, some people it's just their mind that becomes unblocked, and we connect. And I think those are really important moments in our lives in order to really connect with our creativity. And that's even partially why I started this series of conversation, because this puts me in a place where I'm really listening to the person who's talking to me, and really just set this time aside to just listen, but not just listen to me, but listen to the other person. There is something that happens, the purity that happens when you just really stop and really commit to just the moment. And you know, I love what you just said, because that really helps me. I felt like I was stopping myself just to listen to you and just really reconnect with that space, that empty space that I think we have to tap into in order to actually to refill our tank to become creative again. What do you think?
Oh, I think you're totally right on that. Yes, definitely. When we have this like overload of busy, and I have to do, and the to-do list, we're not nurturing our inner self. Mm-hmm. And it's really neglected, and often people don't reconnect with their inner self unless they go through some kind of crisis or health challenge, it seems. And we don't need to do that to ourselves.
Right. Why do we have to traumatize ourselves just to move, just to discover that space, right? And I think one of the things that the pandemic has done for people is a forced time to stay in an empty space within ourselves. And I really, one thing that I'm trying very hard is to remember that space. So it doesn't have to require a traumatic experience, because one of my friends is a therapist, and she and her colleagues have described this pandemic as a collective trauma. The society is going through, the world really is going through together. But I think the goal is for us to connect to this part of ourselves without needing to go through a traumatic experience. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've had to start to go within, you know, with just the way we've been isolating, having to communicate through the internet or devices. It's really brought up a lot of stuff with people, like that they probably didn't even realize they were going through, you know, stuff on the back burner, it's all kind of come to the surface, like depression and anxiety, and so definitely like utilizing people that have utilized this time for self-reflection. Some of those people, you know, they've achieved a lot of goals actually during this time because they've been able to focus on their creativity. They've been able to write. They've been able to produce work in this isolation. But it's been really hard for people. You know, I didn't realize how social I was. I consider myself an introvert actually. But I didn't realize that just not being around people that much, how my mood shifted. Even if I didn't talk a lot, or even if I wasn't always social, just being around humanity was something that I missed.
Mm-hmm.
And I just spent a lot of time reflecting.
Right.
And
you know, it's interesting because during this time, my students, I have a lot of piano students and some voice students, we are doing online lessons. And the interesting thing is they're focusing better when they're doing online lessons, so they're actually accomplishing more. And because they're not driving to me and rushing to me. And additionally, I have a couple of students who are venturing into advanced piano playing. And so I have sent them a couple meditation apps that's free, because what they have had a hard time to do is to stop the inner chatter when they're playing. They're focused on what they're playing, but their chatter is like, how am I going to do the next measure? Oh my God, what am I going to do with my hands in order to play this well? Instead of being in the zone and just ride the wave of the music. So what I've done is I asked them to take 5 minutes to just work on breathing and meditating, see if they can learn to kind of focus their mind on the task at hand by being in the zone. And magically, their piano playing improved, because I could see they were struggling not really with the technique or the musical understanding, but with self-criticism, the chatter that's happening. So but it's very deceptive, because they're thinking about how to play the piano when they're playing. So how is that a distraction? How is that something that was damaging while they're playing? So that could be very confusing. So we were working through that. Even at a young age, I think we're conditioned to want to be better. So sometimes in the quest of being better, we have this self-criticism and we have this chatter. And taking that time to turn off that chatter is so important. And So you know, I just appreciate conversations with people like you so much, because it reminds me, and I think hope it reminds other people about this chatter. And it can disguise as focus, but it's very damaging and it blocks us from being able to function to our optimal ability and creativity. So what do you think? And I would like to get your final thoughts on some of those things we talked about, and then we can say goodbye. And I hope you'll come back again, because I love this conversation. I can just talk.
Thank you. I'd love to. Yes. Well, I think that's so wonderful that you're having the students start out with that practice. And it's creating a safe space for them to actually be in the moment, because you're more focused when you're in the moment rather than thinking of ahead or what you just did that you might have thought wasn't that great or whatever. But inner criticism is like a huge obstacle to creativity and performance. And that's one of the main things that holds people back from actually achieving their dreams, is worrying what other people think. Am I good enough? Am I worthy? A lot of it has to do with feelings of worth, you know. Oh, you know, I'm not good enough. And that's like a huge internal obstacle that many people have. You can pick it up growing up from other people. You know, if you have critical parents or strict parents. Luckily, you know, we don't live in the days where people used to hit the students. you know,
Right,
when they messed up. There's so many stories. And I think, how did you manage to become such a great pianist when you said that you had your knuckles wrapped or whatever with a ruler or whatever it was? But because for me, I don't sing well if I have had a teacher criticize me. I shut down, and I've never been in the moment when that happens.
Yes.
I'm just trying to get through my emotional distress at the moment, and I'm not open, and my throat's closing up. So what you're doing is so important, and I think all music teachers should do that. I think they should all help their students focus and be in the moment, because
Right.
that's where you're the most focused.
Oh,
But that is a main obstacle.
Right. The music starts soaring when we start being in the moment, and the wings cannot take off when you clip them. And I remember one of my greatest voice teachers that I've studied with, and he said, you know, when I'm teaching my voice students, they're artists, and artists cannot sing when they're frightened. And I just always remember that, and that was such an important moment. And I appreciate him. I love him forever because of just even that one moment alone. And so, I think as human beings, we also have to take the accountability to protect ourselves. When we were children, we may be putting lessons with people because our parents chose to put us there. We didn't have a lot of choices, except me. When I was 4, my parents hired a piano teacher to come to our apartment to give me lessons. She was mean, and she took a pencil and tried to hit my hand. So I stood up, and I was barely as tall as the piano because I was 4 years old. I told her, Miss Lee, thank you so much for coming, but you don't have to come back again. My mom was sitting in the back, and she was mortified, but she took note of that, and she asked the teacher to stop. And I didn't have any more lessons with that teacher again. She transferred me to a different teacher. So I have a very special mother, and I'm grateful for her every day. But as adults, I think we need to find who we are within, and realize we have the option to choose. We can choose the teachers who are both honest and nurturing, because we need the honesty in order to grow. We need the feedback that is constructive, and but we also need people who acknowledge us as artists, because when an artist is frightened, we cannot fly. Our wings are clipped. And I think that is where we can probably end our conversation today. Diana, I would love to have you with me again. And we need to have phone calls just between the two of us, because I love our conversation.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And what you're saying is totally right on. And I'm so glad that we've had this conversation. Thank you.
And this is such a wonderful connection. And so I'm going to put this on Facebook, and I'm also going to put this on Instagram TV and tag you. And let's do this again. So have a wonderful Tuesday. And you and I would chat offline some other time for sure. And I'm so glad you joined me. And happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
Yes.
Bye. Thanks.